Hi, my name's Jason. There's lots of ways to protect things in Excel. You can protect things at cell level, sheet level, or workbook level. You might decide to add a password, and you can add passwords to open or modify a workbook. You can encrypt it, you can protect it against structure changes, you can even add a digital signature, or lock it down against further changes by marking it as final. I'll tell you what, around here the fun never ends. Let's go.
When it comes to protecting things in Excel, there's 3 levels at which you can protect at. So first of all, you have your cell level. Cells can either be locked or unlocked, but that lock does not become active until you protect the sheet. So protecting the worksheet is the second level up, and the third level is to password protect a workbook or encrypt it. And there's a few different ways you can go about doing that. So here we have some example data. I've really simplified things here. So just 2 types of cells, those that I can change and those that I can't change. Now all I've done so far is type that in and just colour the cells in. What I want to do first is to just click this little block here between A and 1, just to show you something, and then go to the Format Cells dialog box. The keyboard shortcut for that is Control 1, or you can right click and Format Cells. And over here on Protection, you can see under Locked, it's got a nice clear tick, which means that every cell on the worksheet is currently locked. And that kind of seems a bit counterintuitive the first time you hear that, because obviously you can do anything you like to any cell in a workbook. The thing is, that lock doesn't become active until the sheet is protected. So what we're going to do first, before we protect the sheet, is to go through and decide which cells we want locked and which cells we want to unlock. And that's why you've got to do it. You kind of got to unlock the stuff you want to use rather than lock the stuff that you want to protect. So let's cancel that for a second. What I want to do here is to select all the cells that I can change, go back to Format Cells and a Protection tab, and just untick the locked box, which means they are unlocked, and that means I can do anything I like to those cells. So let's OK that. Now at this point I can still do anything I like to any cell because the sheet hasn't been protected. So under the Review tab, you'll find over here something called Protect Sheet, and if you click Protect Sheet, you can assign a password if you want to, which means you then have to enter that password again to unprotect the sheet and make changes. Once we click OK, the sheet will then become protected and the cell locks will become active. Now these ticks down here basically say what the user is allowed to do with a protected sheet. So the 2 things that are ticked by default are select lock cells and select unlock cells. People can still select anything they want, but beyond that, that's for you to decide here. So if you want to restrict them from being able to reformat cells, from being able to insert extra columns or rows, to delete columns or rows, down here is a few other bits and pieces, then you can do by ticking the things you want to restrict. So let's just leave it as the 2 defaults for now and click OK. Now what that now means is that these things that I can change, I can do anything I like to those as per a normal cell. But if I try and change things like here, and the things I've coloured here are typical things like your headings in a table, your formulas down the bottom, these are the kind of things that you don't want overwritten accidentally. So when you try and change one of these, straight away you get the message coming up to say it's been protected, you cannot change this. So that's the first 2 levels of protection. The third level of protection is to protect the workbook. Now up here you'll see an option that says protect workbook, and it gives you an option to put a password on it, but what it's talking about is the structure of the workbook. And what the structure means is the layout of the worksheets down the bottom. So if you protect for structure, it means you can't then rearrange your worksheets, you can't add extra worksheets, that kind of thing. The structure of the workbook is protected. So that's the first thing you could do. Let me cancel that. There's some other options of things you can do here. If you go to the File tab and choose Info, and then come across here and choose the Protect Workbook option, there's quite a few things actually that you can do here. So first of all, if you choose Mark as Final, what it does is it locks the workbook down so that no further changes can be made by anybody. This is the final version, no further changes allowed. You can encrypt the whole workbook with a password. When you choose that, you just put your password in. It also encrypts the file, so if somebody gets hold of it, they can't see the contents. You need a password to unlock it. Other options here, protect the current sheet. But this is a toggle, so because we've already protected the sheet from the Review tab, what this will do at this point is to unprotect the sheet. But if the sheet was currently unprotected, this would then protect it. But it just toggles between one and the other. You can also protect for workbook structure. That again is identical to the one we just saw on the Review tab. You can also add a digital signature. Now what this is about is you can purchase a digital signature from a third party and it authenticates that you are who you say you are. So anything with a digital signature on it, it just increases the level of authority and protection for that workbook. Now there's one final thing I want to show you, and that is if we come down to Save As, and just go to like a browse, bring up the standard Save As dialog box here. Now there's something that's been there for years and years and years, but hardly anybody seems to know about it. And that is down by the Save button, you'll see Tools. And under Tools, you'll see General Options. And this is the same for every program pretty much, every Microsoft program. Under General Options, you'll see then you can enter a password to open the workbook and a different password to modify the workbook. So you can actually have both passwords set, one or the other, or nothing. And there can be different passwords, which you can then give to different people depending on what they're allowed to do. So that again is another level of protection you could go to if you want to use it. Okay, I hope that's been a useful rundown of all the ways you can protect things in Excel. So just a quick recap. At the cell level, you can either lock or unlock your cells. That lock does not become active though until you protect the sheet. The second level is to protect the sheet. And when you protect the sheet, you can then specify what users can do with that protected sheet. At the top level, you can protect the workbook. Now you can either assign a password to open, a password to modify. You can protect it for structure. You can mark it as final. And you can even add a digital signature. That's how you want to go.